Hey guys, Bryson with Trick Tools here. I want to give you guys a look at the Baileigh Magbrake. So this is a 48-inch Magbrake. They also have a 6 and 8 foot model as well. But this machine here, we've had around here in the shop for quite a while, so I wanted to give you guys a look at some of the capabilities of this machine. So just as the name states, it's magnetic. So basically uses 220 voltage to create the magnetic capabilities of being able to hold down the bend bar, and then there in turn creating the force needed to be able to bend material. So the pulling force on the magnet is about 6 tons across the whole width of the magnet. So this has a material capacity of 16 gauge steel. And obviously it depends on widths and what you're working with, but we'll show you a little later. We even bent a small section of 1/8 inch aluminum on it as well. So 20 gauge stainless capacity at full width. We did do 063 aluminum, 3003. So some of the bend capacities are going to vary based on the alloy of material that you have. So we test out a couple of the different materials to be able to show you guys what some of the capacities might be based on some materials that you'll be working with in your shop. So it's impossible for us to bend everything. So like I said, some of the capacities are going to vary based on what you're working with. So you need to give us a call and see how we can help you out as far as determining if it'll be right for your project. But cool thing about this Magbrake, and the reason that these were kind of developed, is the amount of capabilities it gives you beyond what a standard brake can do. So obviously a standard sheet metal brake has the upper part of the brake here that usually comes down with fingers, or if it's a box and pan, or if it's just a straight blade on there. But you have a lot of height here on the top of the machine, whereas with the Magbrake, this is your bend bar. So very thin, so if you're trying to bend something over 180 degrees, multiple bends, that kind of thing, I mean, this Magbrake can really give you a lot of extra capabilities that are not possible on a traditional clamping style brake. So there's a number of different bend bars that this has, and that's everything from this, obviously the standard, solid 48-inch wide bar, to there's a little bit narrower one. So the width, I guess, from the back side to the front side here is narrower. That way, if you're trying to, you got to bend in, depending on what your part looks like, you can get your bends closer together in this way, as well as there's another wide bar that has relief cuts in it for doing more box and pan style braking, while still having the force, the magnetic force that the whole width would give you on this bar. So we also have a variety of smaller bend bars that are going to give you the capabilities and options to be able to do really small, tight stuff. So this is their smallest one. It's about 1 inch wide. So if you remove this one here, you can even set this on here on your material and be able to get into super tight small spaces. And some of this, again, it's going to vary on what you're working with. If you're trying to bend some 16 gauge steel, or something maybe even a little bit thicker, and this is the only thing you're trying to use to clamp it, you got to be able to make sure that the magnetic force of the brake will be able to bend what you're trying to bend, as far as the size and width and that sort of thing. So I mean, the magnetic force is pretty awesome. So I mean, this thing, obviously you can easily move to turn it on, flip the power switch on. Now there's a couple of different kind of settings on this. So you have right here, you have a switch that is clamping for bending, or you have continuous light clamping. So depending on where you have that set, if you're doing clamping for bending, obviously when you hit the power, it's going to clamp down and you can get right to bending. Whereas if you're doing the continuous light clamping, when you hit the power, it's just going to not put full magnetic power down to be able to have it to where when you get it clamped, you can kind of shimmy your part around, make sure that it's all dialed in first, and then when you go to bend it, and you pull up on this, you hear the switch there. That applies the full magnetic power down to hold your part in place and get your part bent. So there's that switch there, and then yeah, they have a start button, which is going to give you that clamping force, right away. So, like right now, that's not on, so we set that down, and then set this on the continuous light clamping. So if you hit, there's a start button on either side. So you got the one here, you got one down there. That way, depending on where you need to stand, you can get to working on it. So we'll hit that, and you can still kind of move this around, shimmy it around, make sure it's in proper location. And then when you hit that, and it's really putting that pressure down, it's a lot harder to move that thing. I mean, it's almost impossible, even on a small little thing like that. So you get that down there, turn it off, and you can pull your different whatever bend bars and that you have on here. You can move those around however you need them. So the cool part about some of these smaller pieces is that they have a hole right here in the one side, and some of these other ones have pins that stick out of the other side. So these will automatically line up when you put that pin in that hole, and you can stack these to achieve different widths. So here's another one that's got a pin in it, so you can slide that one on there, and then if you need to, you can slide this one on here. Decide you need it a little bit narrower than that, you can slide that piece off, slide your narrower one on, and it lines everything right up, for you there. So gives you some different options as far as that's concerned. So go ahead, and I'm going to take these off of here. So we're going to show you guys the other features of these bend bars. So basically, if you set the main one on here, what you have right here on the sides is there's a little groove relief cut here in the on the bottom side of the brake, and then right here you have this little dial. Now there's a little detent on the bottom side, so when this is set at 0, the tolerance between the end of the bar here and where your bend line is on the brake, it's right up together there, so you have basically not really any room there between to accommodate for material thickness, that sort of thing. So if you turn this little knob towards the one, you can see how it moves. It's moving that back. So there's an 1/8 inch of overall adjustment. So you have about a 1/16. If you go 0, 1, 2, you have about a 1/16, and then a full 1/8 if you go to 2. And then if you do go past that, it just comes right back around. So it kind of just moves in a circle motion. But anyway, it gives you from the 0 to the 2 about a full 1/8 inch of adjustment. And really that's just going to give you the proper amount of setback on the bar. So that way when you bend your material, it's going to allow for room for the material thickness between the bending arm of the brake and the bending bar. So yeah, so you can get that dialed in there. Like I said, when you go to clamp this down, you get your material in there, you go to clamp it. If you're trying to hold your material, say you got some material that's pretty light gauge and maybe it's going to hang down a little bit more, whatever you want to hold it, you don't always have to be able to reach over to hit the button. You have the foot pedal option here. So if you need to be out of way and you get your material in there, you make sure you're lined up and you want to be able to hold it up, you can hit the pedal and it applies the pressure down on the clamping bar. So that's another pretty cool feature there. You do have, these bars back here are sitting on the actual back gauge for the brake. So if you have a different place to be able to put these, you can move these off here. You slide your material through. You can actually set these collars on here anywhere on these bars, all the way up here to all the way back here, to be able to give yourself a repeatable bend. So if you want to be able to repeat bends, say 6 inches in, you can set this all the way up here, make sure you're 6 inches in, and then you can put it in there, break it, stick your next one in there, right up to your stops, break it, that sort of thing, and obviously anywhere in between on this bar. So you get that repeatability aspect with the back gauge there. And I'm going to slide these back. The last thing would be right here on the front. You have another collar here on this bar, and there is a scale from 0 to 180 on here. And what this is going to do is, as you bend this and you pick this up, depending on where this collar is set on here, it's going to stop the bend bar. So right now it's set all the way at 120, so if you wanted to bend all the way over until it stops there at 120, you can. And obviously you can go up to 180 if you don't have your bend bar right up on here. So that allows this brake to do some hemming. You're going to actually be able to rotate this thing around in a way where you can actually fold a piece of metal back on top of each other and hem that edge. So that would be one of the last features. It does operate again on 220 power, single phase, and it only pulls about 12 or so amps, so it's not a high amperage application. So you can get away with like a 15 amp 220 plug, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's going to give you what you need to be able to do different braking applications. So we'll show you guys now some demo material bends. We're going to do some 16 gauge steel full width. We're going to do some 063 aluminum full width, and then I'll even bend up some 1/8 inch aluminum on here on a shorter section to show you guys that it does have the capability of doing some other things. But again, the ratings on this are 16 gauge steel. It'll do 063 aluminum full width and 20 gauge stainless. So you really need to know what you're bending, what your alloy is, and the shapes that you're trying to achieve, the widths you're trying to achieve, that sort of thing, to know if this is the right machine for you. So we'll go ahead and show you guys those bends, and then we'll close it up after that. All right, so I've got a piece of 16 gauge steel here that we have bent up a little bit already, but I'm going to go ahead and bend it a little further. So I'm going to slide this in here, and for demonstration purposes, obviously we're showing you guys the full width, 48 inches of 16 gauge. We don't have this machine bolted to the floor here, but if you're going to be continuously working with a lot of the max capacities of the Magbrake, you want to make sure you bolt the machine down. And the reason is when I go to pull on this, it's going to try to pull the front of the machine up off the ground a little bit, because it does take a pretty good amount of arm force to be able to bend it. So I'm probably just going to stand on the legs here a little bit to be able to give a little bit of extra downforce on the machine. So yeah, we'll go ahead and set the bend, and then we'll start bending this. So just with that little bit, I mean, there's fairly close to 90 degrees, but I can even go past that to show you guys. So again, you want the machine bolted to the floor. That way you can really put the full force around to be able to bend it. But that is your bend on 48 inches of 16 gauge steel. I did have the setback all the way back a full 1/8 inch to be able to put a nice little roll bend on there. But you can play with that on your machine to get the amount of bend in here that you want. So you can see you can do some pretty cool bends with this, even some roll bends, which I'll show you in a little bit. All right, so I have a 48 inch wide piece of 063 aluminum here, and this is 3003 H14, so this is a half hardened aluminum. And again, you need to be able to look at your materials, your alloys that you're working with, to make sure we don't have a dedicated chart of each type of alloy and the thicknesses and all that kind of stuff as far as the capacities of the machine. So this is just to show you that if you're working with 3003 H14 063 thickness, that it will do it at a 48 inch width. So get that clamped on there. Bend this one all the way around. So there you go with a nice piece that's bent over. Now the front of these bars is about a 67.5 degree angle. So, you know, if you want to go further than that, you got to, you know, go to a different bar, be able to ham it around all the way 180 degrees. All right, so I've got a piece of 1/8 inch aluminum here, and I'm going to bend this on the brake. And this is just to show you guys that it does have a little bit of capabilities beyond just the regular sheet metal thickness. This is a 12-inch wide piece of 3003 H14 aluminum. So this is half hard. So if you're working with, say, 6061 aluminum, something like that, the capabilities are going to vary, obviously based on the hardness of the material. So wanted to show you guys this bend to show you that the brake will do it in certain instances. Part of what needs to be taken into consideration is how far, you know, how wide is the flange you're trying to bend, that sort of thing. So if you just slide this in here, let's just say you slide it in here a little bit and you go to clamp this, it's not clamping the nose of the bar down all the way, and that's because obviously the material thickness up right underneath that front edge. So what you really need to do is actually have this pretty much the full width of the bar, and that's because it's going to allow the bar to have even clamping pressure from front to back, depending on where your material is. So you don't have to worry about, you know, if it's only going back a little distance, it's not going to bend it so far. So you really need to have, on a thicker material like this, you need to have it the full width of the main bar here in order to be able to do it properly. So I've got the setback on this bar set at about 1/8 of an inch. With this thicker material, the bar is a little bit loose in here. It doesn't quite sit down in those detent locations, but that's okay. Because we'll just make sure it's set in place where we need it. I'm all the way back here, and I'm going to put light clamping pressure on there. Now it's not sucked down all the way still, it's just kind of light clamping pressure to hold it in place. So this is kind of a little more solid on here. And then when we go to actually do this, it'll suck the bar down and clamp it down. So that's the bar clamping down. Now there's a bow in the bar this way because of the material thickness, but it will still bend it. So there is a close to 90 degree bend on there with 1/8 inch 3003 aluminum. All right, so now I'm going to show you guys how to do a roll or radius brake type bend in a piece of sheet metal using the Magbrake. So this is something you can't do on a traditional finger brake or a traditional straight brake. So I took the main bar off of this, slid it back, and now I have the narrower bar on here, but I have it flipped around to where the flat edge is towards the front. So now I have a piece of 1-inch stock that will fit right here. And I've got it set up to where when this comes up, I've got some space there for material thickness. As this bends, it's not going to be putting too much pressure back on the bend bar. So in order to make a roll like that, I'm going to go ahead and stick my piece of sheet metal flat up against the edge there of the bend bar. I'm going to stick my stock material in there, light clamping pressure, and then bend it up as far as it'll go. Now we're turning that off, and we've started there with a 90 degree roll bend. So stick this back on here, bar stock back in place, light clamping pressure, and then bend this around. And there you go with a 180 degree roll bend. And depending on how you do this, you can actually take this further. If you don't want as much straight edge here, you can slide this a little bit further back under your tube, and you can actually create almost a full roll around on a piece of sheet metal like that. So that's a pretty cool thing you can do on this brake that is not possible on a regular straight brake. So if you want more information on the Baileigh Magbrake, give us a call, visit our website at Trick-Tools.com, and you can see how this brake can really change the capabilities in your shop. So again, any questions, give us a call. We can try to get them figured out for you. Again, material capacity wise, if you're really trying to make sure that this will work for your application, let one of our sales guys know, and we can actually do some demo test bends on your material by getting that coordinated with our sales guys. So thanks for watching this video on the Baileigh Magbrake, and we'll see you in the next one.